Normally, all I used to go is good ideas and no money there. I'll test you. The big rocks though, 966, now 28. The smallest box 500.
Okay, everybody's ready. Welcome tonight to the Planning and Development Committee of February. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge all other people who have contributed to the rich diversity of this country. Are there any apologies?
No.
Confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting. Take it that everybody's written. Thank you, Councillor Davis, seconded Councillor King. All those in favour? Governance matters. Our meetings are conducted in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 and the Nullarbor City Governance Rules 2020. Our meetings are recorded and live streamed, and you can find them on our council webpage, with the exception of confidential items on the agenda. Councillors' behaviour should be impeccable as always, and members of our public must remain quiet during proceedings unless invited to speak to the committee. Conflict of interest must be declared by councillors at the start of our meeting, stating the item number, whether the item is general or material, and circumstances of conflict. The councillors should then leave chambers when that item comes up for consideration. Are there any conflicts of interest with the agenda tonight? No, thank you very much. Item 1, public submissions on any matters. Thank you. Move on to item 2, a petition to remove nature strip trees at 10 Shawbrook Avenue, Benalla. We have a speaker on this item. Susie Pierce, would you like to come to the lectern, please? Yeah. And as you well know, you've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors, for letting me speak about tonight. The 2017-21 Council Plan says that Benalla is a connected and vibrant community. Further, that it encourages community members to be healthy, safe and active. My husband is elderly and permanently attached to an oxygen cylinder. We saw that last time here. Unfortunately, he cannot walk around Shawbrook Avenue because there's no footpath. He cannot walk on the road because he's too slow to get out of the way of cars travelling quick, making it unsafe. If I submitted a request for a footpath, as it appears from tonight's report, that I could, then council, as a high-performing organisation, would be compelled to act in compliance with legislation and risk management policies. This was relied upon when our neighbours signed their petition to have our trees removed. They would be horrified if I did this to them. The consequence would be that their beautiful trees would be heavily pruned, or they, not council, would be required to remove them as set out in the council's tree asset and management plan. Plus, all the footpath impeding landscaping would have to go. This would destroy the whole appeal of Shawbrook Avenue. The individuality of Shawbrook Avenue, with its council recognised privatised roadside reserves, would be ruined. This is the reality of the precedent that will probably be established tonight. I am not selfish enough to actually require this, but some who have shown by their actions would have no hesitation in doing so. All over Benalla, pedestrians and the disabled are forced onto the road because of poorly maintained, stops-up footpaths or no footpath at all. All over Benalla, there are blind driveways. There are blind driveways, I mentioned in the report. I suggest everyone, and I suggest anyone listening to this, ask council immediately for a safe footpath before any plans are altered, because council is required to act. Oh, and I also ask that all dead trees be removed, plus overhanging branches, suckers of dead branches, and open drains made safe. This matter regarding our trees, I believe, has been poorly handled without any attempt at mediation. It began over reversing a caravan needed to use the roadside area outside our home. It seems that it wasn't needed after all when one sharp struck was removed from their garden. This matter does not support the statement in Council's tree asset and management plan that trees are an important and visible asset that improve the livability of the city and provide enjoyment for residents. Trees should only be removed at last resort. Traffic Works report recommending removal of all trees is unconvincing. Figures 2 and 3 are lifted from a manual applicable for regular domestic streets, not one designed around an off-elm tree. If the site distance stopping map on page 15 is okay, all but 2 of the trees in question would be outside. Pruning could be resolved, and any problem that could be resolved. The numbering of Council's aerial view map in the report distorts the actual position of most trees. I've got 2 paragraphs to go. May I have an extension?
Thank you, councillor O'Brien and councillor King.
The implications of what will follow are numerous, including that it will fuel the perception that Benalla Council or some councillors are anti-trees, when the opposite should be the case as the future becomes public. Council's report acknowledges policy deficiencies regarding pavement trees, but not deficiencies regarding street and subdivision designs, driveways, park, footpaths, and the council's land. Council uses safe and risk arguments to solve problems rather than prevent them. This is reactive, not proactive management. I do not know what more I can say about trees, other than to ask that after 1 or 2 of the recommendations before council tonight be set aside and reconsidered in light of implications for all roadside preserved trees in the yard. Our trees have to go. I hope they're relocated. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Susie. Has anyone got any questions of Susie? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 2, petition to remove major strip trees at 10 Chalkbrook Avenue. Dean Steegstra.
As detailed in the road safety assessment report, trees planted at 10 Chalkbrook Avenue now impact sight lines for oncoming vehicles departing driveways. To ensure driver and pedestrian safety, it is recommended that 13 trees be removed from the road in Chalkbrook Avenue with Benalla in accordance with the road safety assessment. Matter has highlighted a policy deficiency in relation to plans and nature strips, which will need to be addressed. Given the lack of policy and the expedite removal of trees, it's recommended that the trees be removed by council staff. Recommendation.
Any questions of Dean? Okay. I have somebody move that recommendation on page 9. Councillor Hurd, second. Councillor King, would you like to speak to that, Councillor Hurd?
Yes, Madam Chair. With regards to
No.
Look, as far as Susie or Mr. Pearce has suggested, this is the Benalla community is a very tree-loving community. We have many of them, and one of the things that you have when you have any assets of nature and beauty is that you have to appreciate them and you have to take care of them. And it's always unfortunate when we have to make these kind of rulings. However, this one we have a report, and honestly, I didn't need a report to come to this decision. Personally, I could see what happens on a bend. I happen to live on one outside the township, but they are a dangerous situation. And there is also the other situation where if we allow people to build, to plant trees as they wish, then we're going to lose control of the situation. And I think this is an unfortunate situation that's happened, but one that I think needs to be rectified, and this recommendation will do that. Thank you.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to, I guess, reiterate what Councillor Firth has said. In this report, and in particular, the independent report that's been provided tonight, the overriding factor for this is, I believe, for me, is the risk of safety to the community. risk of safety for people crossing roads, risk of safety of people driving in and out of their driveways, and people coming into the court. That to me is the overriding decision in regards to what I believe this report looks like tonight. I'm aware that many people in our community are very passionate about the streets and our streetscaping and what that looks like, and I acknowledge people's passion and want people to be involved and encourage them to think about how they can play a part in this space. But I also understand that there is work in this space that we as council need to do to provide them with the guidance and the advice and the support in how to do that in a manner that is right. So I think council needs to look at this from a point of what we can do to support our community in doing streetscaping. And I think it's up to this council tonight to look at how we can do that going forward over the next 4 years. But based on this recommendation tonight, for me, this is about safety. And I don't think there'd be any council in this room tonight who thinks that a few trees versus our community safety is the priority at this stage. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Councillor Bennell.
Thank you. Hello. Following from the previous speaker, I agree the council should support and have proper guidelines and policies in place. And we have identified that we don't have a proper policy, and there is a recommendation to look at that. I would actually like to see the recommendation with the timeline to see when we can get this policy in place, and then we can expect a draft. What's the process of doing this? That's something I think probably should be added to the recommendation.
So, Councillor Gunnar, would you like to add a fourth part to this recommendation, the policy?
I would suggest to agree on a date or a timeline to have a policy in place to deal with this. It says there's a policy that's there.
So, would somebody second that? Oh, are you happy to include that as part of your motion?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair.
And Councillor Pickering? So we'll add that to that. Councillor Davis, did you like to speak?
Following on from other councillors, unfortunately, Mrs. Pearce is the start of the opening of a Pandora's box of what Benalla City Council is going to go through. And I certainly support my fellow councillors that we need to address a policy and get this right, because as late as yesterday, I had a ratepayer ring me up, and council have actually planted the tree right next to her driveway, and she was very concerned about it. So I think that just highlights the inefficiencies of the system we've got here at the moment. As yesterday, another ratepayer rings me up and says, hang on, how come a council have gone and put a tree right next to my driveway? Couldn't they move it down 3 metres? So I mean, that just highlights that we have to really address the whole policy, because if we're going to ask Mrs. Pearce to pull out her trees, which I agree is, as Councillor King said, it's a traffic issue. We have to address that today, because something could happen tomorrow morning. It has to be addressed. In addressing this motion for this recommendation, we're also opening it up for a lot of work for Benalla Rural City Council to do in the very foreseeable future. And as my fellow council said before me, we need a timeline to do this, and it's going to be a lot of work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Claridge?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. There's not a lot I can add after all that, but I do agree that it is a safety issue, and it's something that we have to come to grips with. And by coming to grips with this, as the other councillor said, it does open a Pandora's box of issues which should have been dealt with in the past, but hasn't been, and now is the time to do that. There is a quote that I've used before that says that we can't change the beginning, but we can start where we are now and fix and change the ending. And I think that's what we have to do. I fully support the recommendations.
I'd just like to,
Yeah, just through the chair, I'd just like to have that
yes, I'm just about to.
read, thanks.
So we're just going
Yes, please. It's just-
Just through the chair, that in addition to items 1, 2 and 3, item 4 will read as a draft. Street tree policy be presented to the council by the 31st of May 2021. Second.
Are you happy with that, councillor Kerr?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. You need to speak again?
Nope.
Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favour? And that's passed. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in, Susan.
Come back.
Yeah. On the other side. Yeah.
You've just got to wait
That's it.
for, Joel.
I do think that's true. You can move so fast in council.
Planning staff are on their way.
Here they come. Welcome, Joel.
I'm seeing the words right down there.
Welcome, Neil. There you are. So we've got item 3 on the agenda is the planning application number PWO 83/20 to develop land for a dog free facility on 38 Flowers Lane, Cronulla. Oh. Sorry. Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I present to the Planning and Development Committee planning application to use and develop the land for dog breeding facility, 38 Flowers Lane, Cronulla. The proposal was presented to the Planning and Development Committee meeting in December 2020, where it was resolved to defer the proposal to the next meeting. The applicant has advised that he is in the process of obtaining further information regarding this proposal, and requested that consideration of the application be deferred. The recommendation is on page 20 of the report for your consideration.
Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Bird.
And through the chair, Joel, is there any indication of what the extra information in support of the planning application is?
No, not within the written correspondence.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Can I have someone move that the debate be deferred to the 3rd of March? Thank you, councillor Claridge, seconded by councillor Davis. Would you like to speak to that, councillor?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
All that, those in favour? Thank you, that's fine. Jenny.
Eight Bond Street.
Okay, item 4, the planning application for a 2-lot subdivision on 8 Bond Street, Cronulla. We have a speaker, Jenny Baldry. Yes, Jenny, welcome you. You have 3 minutes to speak. If you need a little bit longer, please indicate, or we'll hear about it in the 3 minutes are actually. Yep, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll probably be very brief. The planning report that I've read pretty much covers the application and the assessment. It's a fairly moderate 2-lot subdivision in an area that has probably got a much more high density in the vicinity than what we're proposing. It's a fairly moderate 2-lot subdivision with a residual lot of over 500 square metres. So to develop that residual lot, we won't even need a planning permit. I realise the objections probably relate about the concern about the mineral impact and the visual impact in terms of the streetscape and the character of the area. And I suppose we suggest that the character is really not being changed that much because the existing dwelling to the front is being retained with a little bit of a repair and modification. There will be a second driveway on the left-hand side of the block. And that's really all that's already been approved by the infrastructure department to put that in. The existing driveway is being used as a battle axe to the rear lot. So presenting from the street will really still retain that existing dwelling. So from a character point of view, it's not really changing the character of the area. And from an amenity point of view, the rear lot is such a fairly standard sized residential lot for a general residential area that it can be developed very, very easily. We've provided a indicative building envelope, provided some turning circles that show that either way you can exit in the forward direction. So from a safety aspect, there's no concern. From a setback point of view, it meets all the setbacks for boundaries. There's no overlooking because only a single dwelling is going to go there. From a site coverage point of view, it meets all the planning requirements for site coverage and the garden areas. So from our perspective, we don't see that there's any great issue from what the objectives have put forward. I know was probably a lot of other things in the objections that probably weren't planning related. So I suppose I just can encourage you, to focus on the planning related matters because they're the relevant matters, I suppose, in making the decision. And so from that perspective, it's met all the 456 requirements of the planning scheme. And I suppose we see that it's quite a relevant development of the area. I suppose just as a quick visual, I did prepare, and it's probably going to be hard for you to see, but the orange is the subject land, and all these pink areas are all developments around the area that are actually much higher density than what we're proposing. So from that perspective, I feel that it is very consistent with the character of the area. Thank you.
Are there any questions, Jenny? Thank you very much. Would you want to? So item 4, planning application for a 2-lot subdivision of Lakefront Street.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I present to the Planning and Development Committee a planning application for a 2-lot subdivision at 8 Street, Penella. Proposal will create a battle axe lot to the rear of an existing dwelling. Lot 1 will contain a vacant lot to the rear of the site of 610 square metres, and lot 2 will be located around the existing dwelling. An additional crossover carport was provided to the existing dwelling to comply with car park requirements. The proposal has been advertised and 5 objections have been received. The issues raised within the objections are outlined in page 23 of the report and generally relate to the proposal not being in character with the surrounding area, loss of privacy, and impact on existing drainage infrastructure. The proposal has been assessed against the requirements of clause 56 of the Penella planning scheme related to subdivision and has been found to comply with these requirements. Subject to conditions from the engineers regarding drainage and access is considered that the proposal is appropriate for the site surrounding. Recommendations on pages 29 to 33 of the report for your consideration.
Are there any questions of Joel? Councillor O'Donnell.
Through the chair, please, Joel. I'm just, I know that there are 2 ticks there on the assessment for C25, the urban runoff management, and it says the stormwater runoff from both the allotments will be directed to the existing drainage network. But is this infrastructure, and also given that Jenny just mentioned that there are other developments, is that enough, even though it can pipe into that existing drainage? Is that infrastructure enough for future developments in the area of this development?
So
It's not.
development will have to be designed in accordance with the infrastructure design act, which means that all water from the development will need to be retained on site before it's discharged into the existing stormwater network. Which means that from this development there should be no additional extra impact onto existing infrastructure in the existing drainage infrastructure.
I guess that's what my question is the existing infrastructure capable, given that that is an older area, of sustaining this sort of development for the future?
I might leave that one with Nilesh because he's an engineer who knows what the existing infrastructure is.
Through Madam Chair, the existing infrastructure on Margaret Street was duplicated. So in 2009, there was another set of pipes put in Margaret Street, and that's capable of taking that water from there. So.
Are there any other questions?
If it's done, can I
There's
move
no other
this?
questions. Councillor Davis would like to move that recommendation, and Councillor Rodney seconded. Would you like to speak, Councillor Davis?
I think it's good to see more development in Benalla. It's another house. It's very good to see that the actual size the block's being split up to is going to be bigger than what size blocks are being created in new subdivisions at the moment. Where it is very handy to schools. So hopefully a young family will be able to move in there and support the schools in that area. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Would you like to speak? Anyone else like to speak? Thank you. All those in favour? That's passed. Thank you. Move on to item 598. Oh, please.
Thank you. Mary Schwartz. Just on the Madam Chair. Two more people.
Welcome. Item 5, planning application for the construction of three double-storey and 2 single-storey dwellings at 17 Mary Street. Three speakers in the first speaker tonight will be Peter Shulman. If you'd like to come up to the lectern. Peter, we'll give you 3 minutes and you'll hear about.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Peter. I work for Beyond Design. We drew the plan. Just thought I'd start off. So we engaged council very early on the piece, pointing the drawing and and after speaking to the officer on duty, we were made 3 requirements to consider. We were advised that there were no issues with the proposed double story as long as a single story component was proposed to the rear. The council would not support a dual crossover on the property, and there would be no dispensation for any favour of parking, including visitors. As the proposal demonstrates, we adhere to each of those requirements. And subsequently, when the application was lodged to council, it progressed straight to public notice with no RFI issue. No concerns were raised during that time. Post advertising, council received 3 objections that were made available to us. They mostly relate to neighbourhood character, and more specifically the double story component and its impact to the adjoining neighbours. The objections highlight the lack of examples within the immediate area to justify that the development does not fit within the neighbourhood character. However, the suggestion that double story form is suppressed due to lack of examples is unwarranted. Instead, the question should be firmly directed as to whether the double story has a detrimental impact to the neighbourhood. As written in the officer's support, the immediate area is varied. To the south, there is a 10-dwelling development. To the south,